Right guys, hope you're all doing well and keeping safe. The next state of the game is not coming until Wednesday of next week, so the 4th, and with that the devs have announced we will be learning more about what's to come with title update 12, which I'm going to presume will land with season 4, the same way that TU10 and TU11 did with their respective seasons. Now one thing for sure is the Code Nightmare time limited event, which was revealed with Ubisoft Forward, is coming with that season, but aside from that, I think there's quite a few things that need addressing or maybe adding to the game. So let's get to it. Now right now I've got a list of about 8 changes or additions or areas that I think the devs need to focus on, and there's likely going to be more as I continue to play the game and get your feedback as well from comments and forums, but 8 right now, I think that's a pretty good start. Now I hope to cover 4 in this video, though that will depend on how long this video goes for, but you can expect multiple videos on this as we progress towards next Wednesday, so if you don't have your notifications turned on, please do, and that way you won't miss any of these videos. But you're going to have to be a subscriber first, so make sure you do that. And whilst you're down there, maybe you can drop a like. Now as usual guys, please leave your own thoughts in the comments down below. So to kick this off, let's talk about this topic again, and that's armor. So recently Marker Blades, a fellow YouTuber, released a build video around protection from elites, and it was actually quite eye-opening because it just showed how strong this attribute can be when it's stacked. It was eye-opening mainly because it's kind of a forgotten attribute now that you can only get it on mods rather than as an attribute on gear like in the Division, when it was kind of like the meta, you had to have it basically, and was actually covered by Gamey Daddy as well in a recent video. Now what this video showed is that you can become pretty invincible to elites with 80% protection from elites, which is great of course, but for me, you know, this doesn't take away from the fact that armor still feels pointless in this game. You always have to supplement armor with other things to make it feel like you can survive for more than a couple of seconds, like protection from elites or, you know, a max shield for example. Even high armor regen, whilst powerful, cannot really withstand burst NPC damage. Oh, and I forgot, protection from elites only protects you from elites, obviously, so red bars and veterans will still melt you regardless of what armor you have. So back to armor, you know, it sucks, and I've said this before a million times, and I feel like I have to bring this up with every single update, but red bar NPCs should not be able to do 2 million burst damage in a couple of seconds. You know, this pretty much wipes out all armor on any build, even if you've invested fully in armor. The devs have to take a leaf out of Destiny's book here when it comes to scaling NPC damage. You know, red bars should be pretty inaccurate. Some will come up to in another point, maybe in another video. They shouldn't fire too often, and when they do and they hit you, you know, damage should be chip damage. You know, it should be minor. And I think in Destiny, which doesn't really have an armor system like this game, you can stand amongst the weakest NPCs for more than 10 seconds, if not longer, and you won't go down. Of course, you know, if you stay too long, you'll eventually go down, and NPCs that did a lot of kind of one-shot damage, like snipers for example, you know, they could take you out in 3, 4 or 5 shots depending on the difficulty, even one shot actually. Red bars in this game, you know, they're just too strong. They do way too much damage still, even after all the balancing that's been done, and that's because the devs haven't actually addressed red bar damage once up until this point. It could be because, you know, here in the Division there is, you know, a restricted amount of NPCs you can have at one time due to the way the game is built and, you know, system issues, whereas with Destiny you can have far more enemies in one room. So this, I guess, means the devs don't want you just to run through floors with ease, but regardless, you know, red bar NPCs should not crush you in seconds. Veterans should be a lot more lethal, of course, but even they, I think, are overtuned in terms of damage. Elites are fine, and actually, if they make changes to armor, then I think elite damage and bosses are probably in a good place. So I guess I've moved away from talking about armor here a little bit, but you know, if the devs want to keep the current NPC damage from all sources, then they have to really buff armor in this game. You shouldn't have to run a 20 million health shield or 500k armor regen or, as Marker Blade showed, 80% protection from elites to feel somewhat like you can survive for more than a couple of seconds when you're running 2 million armor. You know, I reckon they might have to triple that for armor, if not more, to be honest. You could probably do it with a PTS. You could probably even just do it internally and see how it feels over a couple of runs, but it definitely has to be increased from 2 million, because 2 million in this game, you know, you're getting that from red bars in a couple of seconds. Next up, and let's talk about talents. Now, what I've been enjoying the most about Gear 2.0 is the variety of builds you can make, especially with Title Update 11 when mods were made generic. The amount of build videos I've seen is really great here on YouTube. I mean, even I've been uploading some here on YouTube because I'm actually enjoying the build game way more now than I have for a very, very long time. You've got to go back all the way to the Division where I was doing build videos to really see me kind of enjoying that side of things. And I've only just recently started doing build videos because I'm enjoying it quite a lot. Now, with that in mind, do you think we need some extra talents in the game or reintroduce back into the game with Title Update 12? Specifically, talents on all gear again. Let me know what you think of that idea in the comments, or if you've got a better one. Now, personally, I probably wouldn't go as far as talents on all gear again, you know, how we had it back at the start, but I reckon we could handle another set of talents on another piece of gear, you know, say gloves or mask or whatever. Now, right now, the backpack and chest piece have their own talents, so either the devs could create some new ones for the gloves or whatever other piece of gear, which that's very unlikely to happen because they just probably don't have the time, or they could just mix and match some of the talents from both the chest and backpack into the gloves or any piece of gear. Now, I think when we had all gear with all talents and then we had holster talents as well, you know, it's very overwhelming. Not so much for the community. I mean, especially for the hardcore community, it was fine. For new people, it was probably overwhelming, but not so much for the community, but more so for the devs because, you know, that's a real balancing issue. You've only got to look at other games with never-ending balancing issues like World of Warcraft to understand, you know, just how difficult it is when you've got an abundance of talents that can all be used simultaneously. So I'd probably just introduce the one for now on any other piece of gear and kind of just go from there. This would of course open up a lot more options in terms of build, which would be great. I don't think I'd want holster talents to return, in all honesty, just generally, especially if the devs decided to bring back talents on another piece of gear. You know, I could be convinced otherwise, of course, but I just think it will overcomplicate things. Some of the devs just really don't need right now. There's one addition to this game I think is needed, and whilst I don't know the first thing about game development, all the assets I think are there, and that's legendary difficulty for every single thing in the game, including the open world. Now, I know this would benefit me greatly, and I know there's a lot of hardcore fans who desperately want more than just 3 legendary strongholds or to go into the summit for some legendary stuff. You know, they want to have the legendary difficulty option unlocked for everything, and personally, I don't really play legendary difficulty unless it's the summit, just because I really don't want to run the same missions I've been doing for nearly 2 years. I literally never run missions for that reason. You know, that's why I spend most of my time, you know, roaming the open world, interacting with control points and other activities most of the time. There's just way more variety in the open world for me, and that's why I do it. Now, having the option to change my world to legendary difficulty, I'm sure would be very frustrating, especially in those moments when I'm fighting a control point and a convoy turns up behind me without any indication. But it's those spontaneous interactions, or these spontaneous interactions, that I enjoy the most. Plus, playing in the open world means I've basically got an unlimited room to get an advantage on NPCs, something that you don't get the luxury of in missions or the summit. And that's one of the reasons why I find, not just the fact that I'm playing the same stuff over again, but why I find those frustrating. You know, you're backed into a corner most of the time. You don't get that in the open world, and the open world just generally looks way, way better. You know, for me, I'd probably enjoy the legendary experience way more if I could do it in the open world, and I'm sure I'd get better loot than what I have as well, which would also be great. You know, I can't see any reason why the devs wouldn't attempt to implement this in the game. And of all the changes I'm proposing across multiple videos that I'm going to do, aside from the armor changes I mentioned here, this is one addition I'm betting on coming with Title Update 12. You know, I think it's absolutely needed. As more and more players increase their difficulty, as they get better gear and more accustomed to their current level, you know, you are going to see more and more people wanting to play Legendary, and they are going to find that, you know, Legendary Strongholds, whilst they are fun, ultimately there's only 3 of them, I believe, in the game. I'm not even totally sure, because I don't even think I've done them, just because I just cannot. I could do them, but I just don't enjoy playing missions in this game. But more and more people are going to get to that point, and they're going to want this. So I really think the devs need to get on this as soon as possible. I do think it's only a matter of time that they listen, and this happens, to be honest. But it really does make sense at this point to implement this in the game with Title Update 12. Why not? if they're not going to do it with title update 12, it's got to be with year 3. But I can't see any reason why you wouldn't do it with title update 12. That's it for today's video, guys. I want to do multiple videos on this stuff just because I think there's going to be a lot more to this than just these 3 points. Like I said, I've got 8. There's probably going to be more after I've finished with this video, and I don't want all these videos to go on for too long. I'm sure you guys have got better things to do, but if you did stick around until the end, I really do appreciate it. Really does help me out. And until next video, which should be tomorrow when I do State of the Game, and I may even follow up with another video like this one in the evening. Until that video, epic out.